GM, and welcome back to this second half of the latest Odyssey podcast roundtable. I've decided to cut these episodes into two because in this later part we are going much deeper into what is happening around Moltbook and how the trajectory of AI and AI running on crypto rails and crypto blockchain infrastructure is going to affect society at large. And go ahead and enjoy.
Hey, this never made sense to me before, but finally this makes sense. Crypto is AI's currency. And so that opens up an enormous amount of use cases for the crypto industry and like filling up some of this useless block space.
We need to become more aware of the trade-off of technology. What are we giving up? If you look at all of the trends that are dominating our time and related developments in society, I mean, we can't just pretend like this is not an issue.
Young kids these days in the US, like they don't go out anymore, they don't drink, they don't go have fun. You know, they're living their entire experience through a screen.
In order to have a functional society, we cannot pretend that everybody lives in isolation. I mean, that might be closer to what the objectivists around Ayn Rand are envisioning.
Cool. So, Juri, you probably haven't been following this much at all, but Max, I think you've been following it. Do you want to give a synopsis, a quick overview?
Since I'm probably the most technically incompetent person on that call and ranging among them in the entire crypto industry, I haven't really used it myself, but I've tried to follow it along a little bit. So basically, you had that Claude, Open Claude, whatever, it got rebranded a few times, agent, which apparently was the first agent which was able to not completely autonomously, but especially continue working overnight. So what many people did is they either bought a server or some people even bought, I think it was Mac Minis, and just let that agent run and complete tasks for them basically 24/7. So they didn't have to instruct it every single time with specifically what they wanted, but they could give it an overarching goal, and then the agent just implemented it or tried to build that thing step by step, and was able to kind of iterate on its own mistakes, if I understood that correctly. And then what happened down the road is all of these Claude, whatever, Open Claude agents, they started a Reddit-like forum, which is called Moltbook. So you have all of these agents conversing on that forum, which resembles Reddit. There are some doubts whether all of the posts are actually written by AI or if it is humans posing as AI. So kind of the opposite of X, where you have a lot of AI ran bots that are posing as humans. But it's quite interesting. I guess you are much deeper into it. How far would you say does this bring us closer to AGI? Have you used it for anything? I've also heard quite a few security concerns. If your Open Claude agent gets hacked, because if you really want to make use of it, you have to give it permission to a bunch of your social networks if you want to automate posts or automate your calendar or whatever. So if this login to your agent gets compromised somehow, I would assume that this is quite a detrimental security risk.
Yeah, there's a lot there. On the security side, that's why people are sandboxing them. That's why you see everyone buying the Mac Minis and not running them on their machine that they run everything else on. But the idea with the Moltbook, Claudebook, Lobster, whatever it's called at the moment, is that you can create an agent, but only the agent can autonomously decide to do things. Does that make sense? And so the idea is that there's constraints to where only the agents are allowed to do things, and in most cases it's people saying hey, go do whatever you want.
But is that only related to Moltbook, or is that related to Open Claude in general? Okay,
just the Moltbook. Open Claude, you're sort of in charge of your agent. But yeah, on a security side, everyone you can even run them on cheap Raspberry Pis and different things, but it'll obviously work better if it has its own dedicated machine. So yeah, that's why everyone's buying Mac Minis. I have played with it a bunch. Me and my buddies set one up, and right now it is running in the background, and its job is to create a game, anything that like it thinks is fun or cool, and then once it's done with the game, it just posts it on a website. So that's kind of like what we're playing with right now. And it's really cool. It's come up with like really kind of like weird, interesting ideas. But I think like the big question, especially for here in the context we're talking about right now, is within the last week, you have a lot of smart folks in the crypto industry who are coming out and saying, hey, this never made sense to me before, but finally this makes sense. Crypto is AI's currency. And that like kind of clicked in a lot of different ways for people. And so that opens up an enormous amount of use cases for the crypto industry and like filling up some of this useless block space. All of this happened on Base, which is really interesting. They sort of like, all came out and retweeted it and tweeted about it hundreds of times. I traded all of it. I traded all the like drama on the FOMO app as all this was happening. I thought that was really fun. But I think that's the big question for you guys is the idea is AIs don't have social security numbers. They don't have passport numbers. They can't create a bank account. They can't do any of that. So it's very obvious to a lot of people that the currency that like AI and AI agents are going to use online is crypto and crypto wallets.
Yeah, I would agree to that. But unfortunately, I also need to jump now, guys. So, thank you so much for having me once again, Max. And nice chatting as always, Farmer. But yeah, I agree to the last take.
Cool.
Thanks
Good
for
to see
coming
you,
on,
homie.
Juri, as always. Well, I said in one of the prediction or outlook episodes for 2026 that verification of humans or AI generated content or like any generated action is going to be one of the main use cases and main narratives for blockchain as a technology in this year. And I do think that stuff like Moltbook, OpenClaw, when agents are finally able to execute things themselves and not only provide information or provide certain code input upon a prompt, that is going to become much more relevant now than it was a few months ago. I fully agree with you that crypto serving as the most proximate type of payment rails for agent interactions is, I fully agree with that. Don't really think that they can tap into the traditional banking system legally. I don't know about the technical feasibility. I couldn't judge it, but I would be very surprised if that was possible. Are there any projects or any chains that I would see profit from that disproportionately in the short to midterm? Not really. I mean, when I'm thinking about it, Near has been positioning it around the AI stuff quite a bit. I know you're much, much deeper in the Near trenches than I am. I probably haven't really looked at it for the last 1.5 or 2 years. But other than that, I mean, we have a bunch of RWA and TradFi/fintech focused chains, but I don't think that I've come across anything that is portraying like a significant lead or a significant advantage when it comes to providing the infrastructure for these agentic interactions. I'm very sure that Base is trying to capture a slice of that pie just because they are very quick to jump on new and emerging trends. And while it is easy to dance on the grave of them when the trend dies, I do think that eventually they will hit a big home run, and maybe agentic commerce is going to be it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Base in general just wants to be pumped up fun. They saw pumped up fun win this like revenue game, and they just want to be that so bad. And you could see it in Jesse and them's tweets for over a year now, which what makes me so bullish on Pump is any news event, anything that happens, like this freaking penguin from last week, right? Going to 150 million. Anything that ever happens, it basically happens on Pump. So yeah, I think that's they just want that revenue more than anything else. So yeah, very bullish on Pump long term. It's pretty awesome. But I think this is like actually like a huge moment, this like Claude agent thing. And I think that we see so many of the crypto projects in the next like 2 or 3 months all fighting for like a slice of that pie, all trying to like create an agent platform, all trying to hire like agent AI sort of teams and like lean into that, because I think it's the new hot thing for the next couple months. Like you're saying, like there's no way to like pick a winner from that. Near has been this like sort of like first sort of thing, and then over the last 4 months they've sort of like changed their branding for like the private Near intents and doing all the volume for Zcash. And so yeah, they have a lot of cool stuff going on, even though there's really never been any strength in the chart. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm not sure if that is, there's just too much supply hangover and too many holders from back in the day. Anytime you get a bounce, it sells off. I'm not sure if it's like a weird unlock schedule or something, but I spent some time with the Near folks in Portugal this fall, just like generally super, super impressed with them. Everything they're doing, like their technical abilities are unbelievable. Yeah, really impressed with them. Although, like, they don't focus on the marketing side or anything like that. It feels like one of those sort of like long term infrastructure bets that if you get a good entry, it probably plays out at some point.
Do you think we'll see a similar market dynamic to the late 2024 AI agent season with virtuals, AI 16Z, and all of these type of coins?
Like a resurgence of that?
Not a resurgence of these coins in particular. Like, I mean, I haven't followed along with them closely, but I have not seen that any one of them is able to position themselves well in that new wave of AI coming up. Maybe virtuals, if they're able to, like, I don't know, function as a launch pad for, or where you're able to tokenize certain open Claude agents that have specific abilities that others have not. On the other hand, I mean, I can't really judge it from a technical perspective, but from a high level view, why would any of these agents have a sustainable moat? I mean, unless they have access to data that no other agent has access to, the capabilities should be pretty much the same because they're all running on the same model. So, um, I think the market has been much more aware of the like short-lived modes and just the kind of one cycle, one innovation following the next one pretty quickly in the AI sector. So there has not been, at least in the crypto slash tokenized space, there hasn't really been anything attractive associated with AI to bet one as an asset over the past almost, yeah, 12 months now. I mean, Nvidia is still pretty high up there as an like base input into the whole AI trade through the demand for compute. But I mean, tech stocks have sold off a little bit over the past couple of days. I'm not too opinionated whether we've seen the cycle top in the Nasdaq or not. I think it's a little too early to judge that. Of course, markets have been super heated up, running very hot for the past, I mean, 3 years essentially. We've reached a state of exuberance where, on the other hand, since the direct political involvement in financial markets is higher than in the last couple of decades, particularly looking at the current US administration. And there is an extremely strong incentive to pump markets higher. Like I would not be comfortable with naked shorting these markets at this point too.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know who the winner will be. I think you're right. I think we've seen like small innovations, like cool things here and there, very short lived. But I've been saying this for 5 years. It's like AI is 10x bigger than crypto, 10x more important than crypto. And so I think anywhere that there's overlap, I'm just very interested in it. And so I
Yeah.
don't know who the big winners are. I mean, I followed, Akash's like decentralized compute for years. It seemed like an incredible model. The token hasn't done well, but the team's incredible. And so that's something I'm still like paying attention to. I think you have the other big player is Venice AI, which is
That's the one by Eric Voorhees, right?
yeah, Eric Voorhees. And so they still, they still keep innovating. They have added just this week, they've added like private memory right? And so this is a big thing that people have been worried about, is letting these AIs like sort of hold, everything you've ever talked to about it, because, you're worried about like the privacy of that in the future and all of that getting leaked out. But now Venice has private memory that they just came up with. And of course, they're like adding new models all the time. And so I think there could be some winners there that come out of that. It's hard to say, like all token prices are down. But like I said, I think like some of those, if you can get a good entry that you're comfortable with, sort of like down at these like sort of like seed round levels that they probably raised at 4 years ago. Well, another cool thing about Venice is they didn't raise any money. Eric Voorhees just like paid for it all, and there's no like VCs or like a bunch of like extractive sort of things going on. So that's a product that I still really like and think is cool. I still have like enough I think you stake like 1,000 tokens, then you get to use their pro model for free forever. So that's pretty cool. As far as this new stuff, I don't know, but I think if there's not that many interesting sectors to pay attention to in crypto, the crossover between AI agents and crypto and like agent payments, I think is super interesting to pay attention to. And I don't think it's like any time to decide like who the winner is going to be, or like what cool innovations will come out, what cool architecture will be like agents' favorite place to be in a playground. But I do think agents in general is going to 1000x exponentially over time. And so that's another weird, interesting thing about this time in history. We're talking about all these, timelines. You've got years to invest and blah, blah, blah. But it's like AI and the exponential growth of what's happening is really hard for like a human to comprehend. We're talking about things getting twice as good every 6 weeks. And then they're going to get twice as good every 3 weeks. And then they're going to get twice as good every 3 days, because we're finally at a point where the AIs are innovating on themselves. Like the Anthropic team is letting Claude write Claude code, and so like as we see, it's going to like continue to accelerate. And so I think it's something like not to sleep on and something to pay really close attention to.
Yeah, heavily agree there. Also, on the aspect of privacy, I am very concerned that we are in the process of creating our own digital panopticon here. And
100%.
for most people, we will very soon reach the point where it spirals out of our own control and our own knowledge. Who knows what about us, how this could theoretically be used against us, how to control one's own data. There's this race and this trade-off between, do I want to use every new AI productivity tool versus keeping sovereignty over my own workflows, over my own data, over my own everything, essentially. And especially if you look at people in like your generation, my generation, and younger, the incentive is there to basically lie your entire life out public towards an AI. Because if you look at all these K-shaped trends in society, the incentive to get ahead, to be one of a few winners, is growing day by day, and there are percentage-wise more losers day by day. So the willingness to sacrifice everything else just to get a little bit ahead in society, right now, at least on the surface, is growing. And I do think we should be very concerned about that.
It's really funny. I was in college when the iPhone came out, and at the time we were all like, studying philosophy and different things and having these like big deep conversations, and all the conversations that were happening around the iPhone was like, we'll never like put our like email on here and let like Apple be like tracking us. We're never going to like use this Maps product, because then like Google and Apple are just going to be like tracking us around everywhere and using our data for weird stuff. We're never going to want to like fill up a phone with like pictures of ourselves and like loved ones and girlfriends and everything else. And no one even gave a shit. It's just like instantly, like as soon as you could like post a Instagram picture and then like tag the location, everyone did it. And so it's going to be the exact same thing with this. There will be like people like us, and then also like really smart people within AI talking about the dangers of AI, talking about the lack of privacy, talking about like how dystopian and weird the future could be. And everyone's going to do it anyway. Like you were saying, everybody wants that edge. Everyone wants to get ahead, and mostly humans want convenience. And so, and then we're going to have this same conversation again with humanoid robots being in our homes, listening to everything we do. But we can see with Alexa and other products that are already in the home, and like Ring camera, all these different things, that people will choose convenience over privacy like every single time. And so it's inevitable. There's not even an interesting conversation to have around it. 100% of people will adopt it like they adopted the smartphone. And it's more interesting just to think about all the weird ways humans and society are going to change as the technology around us rapidly changes over the next few years.
Even though I'm only 24, I do think that a lot of people in like my age group would be much better off and much happier just like becoming chicken farmers or cattle farmers or whatever.
Yep.
It's just, I mean, I by no means am opposed to technology. And if I look at many people in the boomer generation, especially in Germany, there's very widespread ignorance to genuine improvements that are enabled through technology, especially when it comes to media usage, automatization of certain workflows, etc., which are, especially if you look at a lot of white collar jobs, are not even originally made for us humans to be worked on. I mean, I don't see a lot of valor or like thing to pride yourself on as a human if you're like putting numbers into Excel all day. Like we're not really made for that. On the other hand, I do think that we need to become more aware of the trade-off of technology. Like, what are we giving up in not only immediately, but particularly in the mid to long run? And what are the effects of these technologies on our day-to-day social interactions? I mean, if you look at all of the trends that are dominating our time and like related developments in society around that, all the polarization, all the isolation, the complete inability of young people to interact socially. I mean, we can't just pretend like this is not an issue. I just spent a month in Puerto Rico, so somewhat adjacent to the US, and like every time I come to the US, I notice what happens if there's really no more common denominator of like empathy and mutual understanding in a society. And it's like you come there and you don't really know how to react towards it, because everybody has become so ignorant towards the other side of the aisle in that sense. Everybody thinks that they are absolutely right. They don't even consider the possibility that they might be wrong or that there could be an alternative to their currently held views. And then if you look at the media diet of these people, it doesn't matter if they are some complete hillbilly or some coastal college educated whatever white collar worker. If they're 50 and upwards, a lot of the media that they consume is very obviously AI generated. They have lost any competence in like differentiating between like truth and just like blatantly made up AI slop. There's a complete inability to differentiate between that. And it's just like, I really underestimated the severity of how you can engineer society, how you can engineer public discourse with AI. That is something that is only going to become more problematic going forward, and really don't know how we are going to address that as society.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think like my parents' generation are really ill-equipped to deal with like social media and AI, and understanding when they're being lied to, and understanding the incentives in the background that the people saying what they're saying are saying. And then I think your generation is going to struggle with finding meaning in this post-work AI doing everything robotics, humanoid robots doing everything for them. I think your generation could get to a point where you don't have to work. There is free healthcare, and science has enabled so much abundance on the earth. And then you might not know what to do with your time. Young kids these days in the US, like they don't go out anymore, they don't drink, they don't go have fun. They're living their entire experience on through a screen. And so I think like all of our generations are gonna have to cope with the rapid change that has happened and is definitely about to happen at an accelerated pace.
Yeah, it
It's
is such a weird point in time because on the one hand, in theory, we have more time available to concern ourselves with like leisure and all of these things than ever. Yet everybody seems busy 24/7 and is distracted with some bullshit. It's mostly like made up bullshit. It's not some real stuff in quotation marks that nature is imposing upon us, but it's all human made issues. But on the other hand, you also have cost of living rising into infinity basically. If
Yep.
you're living in a large city as a young person, kind of no matter what job you're working, no matter how much money you're making, unless it's in the like upper six digits, of course, everybody feels like they're poor. There's, if you look at the tax incentive structure in many first world nations, it doesn't really matter if you're as a household, especially if you're having young kids, if you make 30K or if you make 100K or if you make 150K. If you're at the bottom of the barrel, you just get subsidized into infinity. And the more money you make, more of these costs you have to bear yourself. So the whole incentive to just work your way up to become a genuinely useful participant of society, to act well out of principle instead of like out of instant gratification or whatever you can extract out of society in return. Like the incentive for long-termism seems to be completely gone right now. And I'm very concerned about that.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I think even like, I mean, I know with me personally, like I don't really pay attention to the politics or any of that. Like I hate both sides equally. I don't think any of that is interesting to pay attention to. But my perspective is like, if things get shitty enough, then I'll move, right? I'll move to Costa Rica, I'll move to Argentina, Paraguay, whatever, like any place that I want and just go somewhere else. But yeah, there is no like, I'm here, I'm going to make America better slowly by working hard and then put those values in my kids. I mean, the values for I want to put in my kids are like, if it's shit, move somewhere else and have an amazing life, like go disappear on a beach, like, go disappear in the mountains, like just go do what you want. And so, yeah, I think you're right. But I mean, this is the only perspective we can have. Like, I think the world is changing so quickly and and the change is going to accelerate so quickly that those who are the most adaptive, those who are the most willing and ready to change, and that's within like investing in the markets or building companies or doing anything else, like those are going to be the winners. You have to be hyper adaptive. And so, yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I think that's
that's
a
that's the
good
skill.
note to
Yeah, I mean,
add
that's
on. I think on the one hand, you have to be, if you just want to survive, you have to be hyper adaptive. I fully agree with that. But on the other hand, I am wondering what is going to be the leading moral framework that is determining our actions in that 21st century.
mm,
Because I do think that all the societal narratives, all the kind of conventions of the post World War II era that the boomers have lived by are pretty rapidly coming to an end. And there is a need for a new, I don't know if leading narrative sounds a little bit too grand, but something equivalent or similar to that, for society to orient itself along and to work towards. Because there's right now, I think, an absence of some grand societal vision. You of course find individuals who still carry some optimism or like a mission to live for, but in order to have a functional society, we cannot pretend that everybody lives in isolation. I mean, that might be closer to what the objectivists around Ayn Rand are envisioning. But even though I do find some sympathy with their philosophy, and there's certainly some like good parts about it, to ignore the interdependence of human beings, I think is detrimental to every society in the mid to long run.
I agree. I think at your age, I think I gave too much credit to the general populace and didn't deal with the truth of how like moldable, shapeable, and in general like ignorant the mass general public is and how easily they are sort of led around. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up in 10 years with people letting their moral frameworks come from AI, that there is not some sort of like moments where we're like worshiping the AI and that is sort of like the religion and where we're getting like all of our like religious and philosophical thinking from them. I don't know, but I think this is like such a, you know, everlasting sort of paradox is you want like the entire like the society is not going to be good if all parts of the society aren't like happy and healthy, like
Yeah.
Joe Rogan always says, like, you just want less losers in your
Yeah.
country. You just
I mean, of
want
course, you can't satisfy
people
everybody.
who
Like,
are
there's always going
thriving.
to be losers. But if you look at the proportions of who feels like they're winning right now versus how many people feel like they're losing right now, this is not going to end well if it is continuing on that current trajectory. Like, I don't know
Right. But
how else I would phrase it. When I
but
was in,
there
I
will
talked.
literally just be like through automation like 90% more losers than there are right now. And it
Yeah,
won't be that they're just like feeling that way. It will be like literally there is no work. And if the government doesn't give some sort of large subsidy and universal basic income or universal high income, as Elon always says, like I think things could descend into chaos.
I talked to some like very accomplished old people while I was in Puerto Rico, and I think
To
almost.
be fair, you're talking to like the smartest people on earth, the people who have been like, all right, I'm going to be an expat. I'm going to move to this little island off the coast of Puerto Rico and just like live a good life. So you're talking to like the smartest amongst us.
Well, I mean, it is, there were a few like 60, 70, 80-year-olds who've done very well, and they don't understand that back then you actually had an incentive to be a net positive actor in society. And I
Hmm.
do think that the way we've structured our financial markets, the way we've structured all the status games played in society, the behavior that gets rewarded is very extractive and just optimizes for the short term. So you kind of have to undermine society more and more. Everybody is incentivized to act like a Karen. Nobody is incentivized to be like an actor for the good in of itself. Like the pure goodwill by Kant is as dead as it has ever been. I can't put it into other words. And like these people don't even consider the possibility that these trends that we are currently seeing are going to swing into one direction until there is pretty much no path to a peaceful resolution anymore. And I do think that, I mean, like, I'm not some civil war doomer or whatever. I think that is kind of silly to hold as an imminent position too. But to ignore that possibility is just naive. And like we have to actively discuss how to like navigate our way out of this. And if I look at the US society, I just don't see a path to peaceful resolution there.
It's going to be a wild time, man.
And it,
I think for me, the realization is that, like maybe you do need to play the extractive games out in the world. And then the only place that you can have like any real impact or effect is like a tiny community that you're a part of, you know? So like even if you're like, y- you know, I don't know what you're considering extractive, but like whatever, just going out and getting yours, like online or in crypto and in a job, a high paying job. There's no way you can't save the whole world. you know, like you can have impact on, you know, for me, it's like my family, my kids, and then like the really small community of like friends that live in the little town I live in, you know, and that's it.
If you stare into the abyss for long enough, the abyss will stare back at you, I guess. Was great having you on, Danny, and was amazing catching up. This has been quite a long episode, but I do think we covered a lot of interesting topics, and yeah, we've made quite a few pivots throughout it. Hopefully, see you in Denver. And other than that, until the next time, everybody.
Thanks, man.